Hey everyone, I'm Julian host of the Business Profit Mastery podcast. My guest today is Scott Fields, a singer from ARIA International group, sung all around the world in front of presidents, rock stars and actors. I've had the pleasure of actually watching him grow over the last 20 years since school. We actually went to school together, which is pretty amazing. I want to get into the school and how he's created the success from where he came from, what his biggest memories and favorite highlights have been, and also really find out what makes Scott Fields tick and how he's been able to create such massive success in his own life and obviously in his own craft, I guess. So welcome, man. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me.
No worries. So, mate, tell me who you are, where you're from. Obviously, I know that, but I'm sure the listeners don't.
Scotty Fields. Scotty Fields. I grew up here on the Gold Coast. Went to Somerset College with you, and we weren't great students going through school, but we'll probably delve into that a bit later. I lived here and then moved to Sydney in 2001. Moved to Sydney to just to have a change. I remember sort of waking up one day and I said to mum and dad, I said, I'm gonna go to Sydney. And they're like, what do you mean? I said, I was getting a bit frustrated. I was kind of at a little bit of a, I was doing a couple of amateur theatre shows here, and I kind of wasn't going anywhere, and work was boring, and so I decided to separate that and completely start over and do a fresh start. So I decided to go to Sydney, and mum and dad were like, you don't have anywhere to stay. Where are you going to stay? I said, look, I'll just drive down there for a week, and I'll stay in the car. I'll just sleep in the car. So they're like, you're crazy. Mum and dad trying to talk me out of it, and to be honest, it was probably the best decision I did as a person, as a man, as on a maturity standpoint, all that stuff, because it really taught me. It really taught me to, because I was living at home still. Like, it taught me to get off the proverbial teat, so to speak, and move somewhere where I can sort of look after myself and all that sort of stuff. Because I really felt that was going to be bad, if I kept living at home and I just wasn't doing good mentally. So I decided to shift, moved down to Sydney. I was staying in the car for about a week and a half. And the first place I went to was Crow's Nest, because I remember seeing Funniest Home videos, and the address was Crow's Nest, Lockbag, Crow's Nest, New South Wales, or something or other. So I thought, I'll just go to Crow's Nest. I know it's close to Sydney, so I drove there. Didn't know anything to do with Sydney. Took me 11 hours. Got down there, and I went down near the Crow's Nest Hotel there on, I think it's Falcon Street, if I remember rightly. And there was a little Caltex halfway down Falcon Street, and I parked up around the back of that in this little side street. And I just slept in the car for a week and a half, and I was looking around and trying to get myself involved in, social things there during the week when I visited some things, and was looking for jobs. No jobs came up, no success on the jobs side of thing. But then I remember getting, this is close to 20 years ago. So the memory's a little hazy, but I remember getting a little down and a little sad, and I called Dad and I said, hey, Dad, my feelings are not doing too good, I'm all down. He's like, well, look, you're there now, he said, why don't you just go to your local pub tonight, have a couple of beers, but just have a chat to some people. And look, he said, the best thing he said was, you're only an hour and a half flight away. We can always put you on a flight and you can come down, regather your thoughts. But I think what you're doing is very noble, and you should keep at it.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, went to the Crowley Hotel, which was across the road, and I was showering in I made friends with the guy that did night shifts at the Caltex, and I was showering, and he was giving me like discounted food and stuff at the Caltex, and so I was able to sort of use the toilet and shower there, which was really good. But yeah, the night I went to the Crow's Nest Hotel after Dad's advice, I went and took it up, and I went over there and started talking to these random people, and there was guys and girls there, and we were all talking, and I told them my story, and like, no way, and what do you do? I said, I'm in entertainment. I'm a singer. And they're like, oh, so are we, you know, believe it or not. This is how it all sort of aligned, you know. It was meant to happen. And then a mate of mine, Mikey O'Neill, heard that, you know, that I was here and I was staying in my car, and he said, dude, why don't you come and stay with mum and, you know, at mum and dad's place, and we'll, you know, stay there for a few months, and there's an audition for a musical called what was it? Guys and Dolls. No, I can't remember. Anyways, a musical. Can't remember the musical now. You should audition for it. It's this weekend. I'm like, okay. So anyway, when I moved out, from that point forward, I auditioned for the show, got in with the show, met all these great mates, still mates today, that live in Sydney and other places, and got a job working as a sales rep at Fitness First. So membership sales, which, I mean, was my first real sort of decent sales role that I was actually quite good at, you know, hitting targets and becoming top of the state and this sort of stuff, you know. And sales, I thought, was my avenue. I thought that was it. And, you know, until I realised that that sort of sales that I was in was really, I wouldn't say bad, but it wasn't great. It wasn't great sales, what they were doing, what those membership sales do. So I was kind of like, you know, I'd step back from a bit, and I moved. I then worked at the Hilton hotels as a bar manager. So I started getting into cocktailing. I loved the creativity of it, because I'm a really creative guy. So I got into the creativity of the cocktails, and then I got into a management role where I was sort of put there to sort of build the bar up from basically a failure. So I was able to do that with the help of a couple of really good employees. And then I get a call from my best mate, Shorty, who you know, Shorty. And he said, hey, there's a position opening for the 10 tenors. They want another singer. They're auditioning for these singers. And I, at that point, I was like, dude, I haven't sung a note for like 4 or 5 years. Like I haven't sung anything. Like there's no way. And he's like, just audition, you know. That's all you have to do. Send an audition in or organise an audition with them. And I had a couple of days to think about it. It was in like 3 weeks' time or 2 weeks or something like that. And I said, right, if I'm going to give this a go, I'm going to move back to Queensland. I'm going to spend 2 weeks just solid rehearsing my voice, like singing until I couldn't sing anymore kind of thing. Got some lessons, got all this stuff. And in 2 weeks' time, I did this audition. And I didn't hear anything back. I'm like, oh, no, that's probably no good. And a week later, the boys were touring in Toowoomba. And they were at the Empire Theatre in Toowoomba, and they said, "Oh, come up and see the show." Well, you know, okay, I'll come and see the show. So I got up there, and one of my favourite memories of life was the moment after the show. The boss calls me over, and he goes, "Fields, how did you like the show?" And I was like, "Mate, it was unreal. You know, it's such a great show." And he said, "Well, I'd like you to come on the road with us." And I said, oh yeah, like at first I'm like, what do you mean, just like as a support network or like
backup
I was
dancer?
thinking, you know, because they hadn't called me directly saying, hey, you're in the 10 tenors. You know?
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, I'll come on the road. And he goes, you know, we'd love you to be a part and be one of the 10. I'm like, I'm sorry, you want me to sing it? Are you what the? Oh, did I get drunk that night? Let me tell you, holy. Absolutely blown that night. So yeah, it was that was a special moment. So then I was able to tour with the 10 tenors for a year or so, 2 years or whatever it was, can't remember. It was about 12, 13 years ago. And we toured all around the world. You know, the 10 tenors, they've been to 30, 40 different countries. You know, they've gone everywhere. I think they're more successful overseas in Europe and stuff like that than they are actually in their own country, which is very strange.
Happens a lot.
Yeah. So then I left the 10 tenors and then came back here to Australia, where I met my wife. Amika, and then we sort of built first like five or so years together here, and then on and off we were sort of going back and forth to America. We're trying to sort of feel our way there, trying to work out if that was the right thing to do, if that was the right move, and then I think it was 2014. We had this opportunity. My mate Jason, myself, John Nicholson, which used to go to Somerset as well with us, and another guy from the 10 Tenors. We decided to form. We got this opportunity to sing for George Bush for a foundation that he looks after called Helping a Hero, where they look after people with PTSD, sort of amputees, like missing limbs from IEDs and things like that, like rehabilitation and
war based.
So we had they're like, would you guys want to sing? And it was on the season finale of on a show called Extreme Makeover Home Edition on the ABC channel over there. It was probably the show in prime time, for the past like 15 years, 5 years ago. So it was the show, and we got to sing on their season finale, and we got to sing for this thing and for George Bush, and then we're like, wow, we've missed that. Let's maybe do something while we're here and while we're all living here. And so we all got together and we just started forming a group, and from that point on, it all snowballed, and I've been living in the States ever since, and then COVID-19 sort of brought me back here.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy. Now, obviously, that's 20 years in 5 minutes.
That's a snapshot, yeah.
Yeah, that's a very, very loose overview on the growth. Did you always want to be a singer? Or is it obviously going from school? Obviously, we sang in the boys' choir together. We touched on that the other day.
Yeah.
Was it always singing that was obviously going to sales? Same thing, I guess, similar to myself. I'm predominantly in sales now, but chef kind of was the a roundabout way to find the right path. Was singing always what you wanted to do, or just kind of fell into it?
Yeah.
But there was a skill there and a talent there that needed to be engaged.
Yeah, Mum basically, I remember Mum got a call in grade 3 at Somerset when I was in grade 3. You weren't there then,
No.
but my teacher calls up my mum and said, "Look, we need a meeting. Come up and see the school. Come to school and we'll have a chat about Scott." And anyway, came up to Somerset one afternoon, and I remember waiting outside there, thinking, "What's happening? Am I in trouble?" Like, I didn't know. It was like I wasn't allowed in the room. There was Mum and Dad in there, and he was basically saying it was Mr. Neil Whittington at Somerset. To this day, probably Neil Whittington I've got to thank, really, at the end of the day. That my mum. But he said, we need to get Scott doing something that he can prove to the students and his peers and himself, prove to that he's good at something. Because I wasn't a good student, as you know. I wasn't academically good. My maturity levels were not there, until as far as I graduated and started on the road with the 10 Tenors. Really, that's when I started to sort of really get my maturity in check, And he said, look, he's taken focus in class. He's disrupting all the other kids. He's trying to be the funny guy. He's trying to this and that. And I
definitely were the funny guy. Definitely were the funny.
Yeah, try. It's trying to be. I was a try harder. Right?
No, I don't think you did try very hard. Probably the funniest kid at school, I reckon.
So yeah, and then so Mum's like, well, I've got him on food. She put me through food allergy thing. Like, I was on good food. I was. It was before ADD was a thing. Before it was really recognised, And it turns out I was definitely ADD, and it's more common than we can poke a forky stick at now.
Mm-hmm.
But Neil's like, well,
on that one, I'll jump in on that one because my report card at school was easily distracted, distracts others, would do much, much better if you concentrated. That was literally from year 2 to 10, actually from 2 to 10. I don't think you got report cards in 11 and 12. If you did, it would have said the same thing. I actually thought that all my teachers were ganging up on me and they all sat in the in the headmasters, in the lunchroom, and they all decided to write the same thing. It was only it was only a few years later that I realized potentially if they're all saying the same thing, maybe it's me, right? Do you think that if you had have been, let's say, diagnosed with ADD, ADHD, very, very similar to myself, do you think that would have changed anything, or do you think not knowing the potential cause of it, or is it just being boys and fucking bored in the classroom, right? Learning geography, and I remember history at Somerset, and you get there and the whiteboard is, or the blackboard actually back there, the blackboard is covered in writing. You're like,
it's so daunting. I can't concentrate like that for the next 20, 30 minutes. No.
I was like, you're already one page ahead of me. Like, this is not,
No, yeah, 100%.
So do you think?
I used to get Shorty to finish all his, and he'd go back to mine, and he'd scribble and do mine and his. He was incredible. Yeah, I didn't have that talent, man. Unfortunately,
Unfortunately, I didn't have Luke Jackson in chemistry class because I was kicked out before I got to sit down. So Mrs. Gallagher, get out. It's like, I haven't even sat down yet. Outside. Oh my God. So do you think that would have played a different?
To answer to your question, for me, it wasn't really I ended up being put on Ritalin and medication, and which, look, to be honest, it does work, but it works for a few hours where you literally, it'll zone you in on the, and you won't need to But at the end of the day, it wouldn't have changed much for me in the long run. All it did really was put a label on why I was being like that, and it gave the teachers and kids a basic understanding of me, of why I'm like that. I guess it was more of a label, and it was an understanding, which kind of helped me. Like, that it was I was able to be understood then, that it wasn't just a strange funny kid that didn't want to learn anything. But yeah, I mean, I always knew from that point when Neil Whittington said to my mum, "You should get him in to do something that he's going to be good at." Going back to that, and they said, my mum said, "Well, what do you recommend? Like, what?" And he said, "Well, there's a teacher, a singing teacher starting at Somerset College at school. It was Reverend Beale's wife, and I was her first student. Like, I was her first student, and I was a little boy soprano. I was still singing in the high voice, but I took to it like a duck to water. It was really odd. Like, I just had a natural ability with it, and I guess it just started snowballing from there. And I started like singing on television shows and started singing in competitions and winning them and all this sort of stuff. So it was really, and I didn't need to really try super hard. I was just doing my lesson a week.
Yeah.
And it became something where I then went through school and started doing musicals, and then all the success with that, and that's how people sort of understood me and got me. But then there was also that backlash where being a young kid at school doing music, doing musicals, singing, you're then going to get ridiculed for being gay, and you get all this bullying, and there's nothing. Not that I'm saying there's anything wrong with being gay, but when you're at school and you're getting bullied for it as a young kid, that's not fun. And it's all because of the singing thing, and I was hadn't grown into myself, so I was a very awkward, skinny little kid, and I was a singer, and I got absolutely hammered at school for that.
And for the people that are listening, we're talking 20, 25 years ago. You know what I mean? Like,
even longer than that. Yeah.
There was, in my understanding back then of school, there was no gay people. I didn't know what that was. We went to an Anglican school. That was one.
I mean, there was gay people, but in the sense of the fact that you didn't know of it. Yeah,
didn't know at school. There was no one that was either way, girl or guy, that was gay at school. There was we didn't have that. So now it's a very, very different landscape. At school, it's a lot more. I think there's a lot more societal pressures to be something or whatever. We kind of.
It turns out that some of our friends from school turned out to be gay. Like that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. You don't.
Yeah.
It was so suppressed, right? It's yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. If it wasn't for that moment where Mum got me into these singing lessons, I wouldn't have been doing some of these incredible things that I've done in my time. So, I mean, I'm very thankful for.
Did she have to push you for that? Because I did a lot of music at school as well. Academically, well, I showed up,
Yeah.
Sport cycling was the only thing, but was music, for me, I got a target.
They got me into organ lessons and saxophone and violin.
Mm-hmm.
I was good at violin, but I never kept on it. I was decent at saxophone, never kept it going. And you played. I remember you played sax too, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I never kept it going, but for some reason, singing kept me interested in it. Maybe because I was good at it, decent at it. I don't know.
Yeah.
It just kept me into it. I loved it, and I was getting success, and I think I was getting a lot of, admiration from it, and which helped me through school. So Neil Whittington was right when he said he needs something to prove to the kids that he's good at.
Yeah.
That was the thing. That was.
And in those musicals, you really shone. That was like Scott Fields, because I remember in year 12, I dropped a IPT, information processing technology. Just couldn't understand it. Just Shorty and Jacko were amazing at it. I was like 36% or something in some test, and I don't even know how I got that, to be honest. Dropped that one, and I remember seeing you in year 12, and I think every time that I saw you, you had a spare. I was like, wow, is that impossible?
I had 18 spares a week.
That's right.
In year 11 and 12. I got to year 10 and I was flunking everything. I was passing PE for like HPE and that, and just passing English, and I absolutely struggled with maths. And it's only now I understand mathematics. Only after school had finished, where my brain had developed, I was became mature. And this is the thing: school's not for everybody, and it, as much as it has to be, you have to be there and you have to learn. It's only later when, don't just because you're a flunk student, or you're flunking out on all these subjects, doesn't mean that you're going to be sitting on the street, on a street corner. You can be like you, Jules, and like myself, and like others that have struggled through school, and absolutely pump at it post graduation. Like, give it a fair stab. Like you take it. Maturity comes in. And you just take it to another level, and you work it out on your own. You don't need a diploma in algebra.
Well, there's probably more people that are more successful. Look, I don't have the stats on this, and I'm sure there's going to be a counter from the
university. 100%.
That's their job. But there's probably more people that have actually done more with their lives that don't have a degree than do have a degree. There's plenty of people that are unemployed with 2 degrees, or perpetual students where they're doing their 4th degree or their master's, but they still don't really have the job in the field that they study in.
Or they get the degree and they don't end up using that degree. So then they end up doing something completely different.
Yeah, exactly. So look, obviously school is one thing that, I definitely felt I could identify with sort of the struggles at school. I love school. I thought Somerset was one of the best schools, the best school I've ever been to. I thought amazing people. I think even now, a class of 99 shows how old we are, is still one of the closest classes and groups.
100%.
Which is pretty amazing. And that even the teachers say that, for a group that left school, you guys are the closest group that's ever come through, which is a testament to the people. But I think it's I think there was some amazing experiences there. I never felt pressured for being dumb or immature. I never felt that. Even though I knew that, I didn't feel it was, because I had other things. Music obviously.
Well, you had good peers behind you too, like good friends that would know, but they just back you up. They're there for you. They're not going to throw a novel at you or a book at you for being dumb.
Yeah, it's quite,
so
especially for quite an elite school. I think that's quite
Right.
rare to find because you're going to have a lot of parents that make a fair bit of money. The school wasn't cheap at all, to be honest. And in some respects, I think hopefully my parents didn't think it was a waste because I always felt that was probably we didn't come from a lot of money. We went bankrupt, lost the family home. But schooling. That really gave me an insight to sort of the lifestyle that I was like. We had the shittest car, and every time I opened up the boot to get my bag out, the fucking rust would fall out. We had 100-mile tape on the back to stop the rust from, and everyone's driving out the brand new X5s, and and I was, but I
and
didn't.
The parents put themselves, your parents, my parents, they push themselves so hard to put us through a good school, man. Like, absolutely. I'd take my hat off to them for that,
100%.
As you do.
Yeah. And every time I walked through the school, it was just, I was so, I loved it. I just loved it. I loved the school grounds. I loved the Barry Arnison's castle that he made.
Absolutely.
The quadrangles, and then we got the swimming pools that the dolphins were training at. So it was just an amazing experience. And I know everyone, when I'm saying that, it sounds like, what school did you go to? Right? It was probably it is one of the best co-ed schools on the Gold Coast, if not still.
It definitely is now. Looking at it these days, I haven't been able to visit.
Margot Robbie came from there. There's been amazing people that have come out of there. So
a lot of newsreaders and Wendy Kingston, Channel 9. She comes from Somerset. A lot of other newsreaders and reporters, and it's TV stars. I think
one of the girls that was in the grade below us, I think she's, or I can't remember, Maggie Palmer. I think she's like one of them was she was in the UN or something, or she was I don't know. One of them went to the UN. I was like, far out. There's some pretty amazing people that have done some pretty incredible things, but the intelligence out of that school was quite high. The OP ones, I got like 19, which I don't think you can even work for the dole at that number. Like,
mate, I didn't even sit for an OP at the end.
Yeah,
didn't even sit for one. I think that was the thing. That's why I was on 18 spares a week, because my mum got called up to school, and they're like, "Hey, Scott's, we don't suggest you sit for an OP," because back then, really, they didn't want people like you or me to sit for the OP because we bring
drag
it down.
the numbers down.
Exactly. So they were really.
There wasn't many below us. No. So they were
trying to push mum and dad to either take me out of school at year 10, but mum didn't want to do that because she knew how tight we all were, and to this day is still the most important thing to me. Some of my mates from school, like I'm so glad they didn't pull me out. What they did is they reduced my subjects, so I was only doing English, HPE, and drama. That's it, brother. That's 3 subjects, and then I spent the rest of the time in the library, talking to Cass, talking to you, talking to had all these spares, but I enjoyed school. I loved year 11 and 12 because of that. I didn't have to worry about getting humiliated because I was getting half a mark out of 82 for maths. Like, that's horrible. So I'm so glad
that was just for your name, I think.
What was that?
That was just for your name, I think.
That's just for getting the spelling right in my last name. Exactly. And it just really does show, though, that you don't necessarily need to be an A1 student to get to a point where you can be successful in what you're doing and have the successes that you and I have had.
Where do you think that drive comes from? Because for me, I think the drive came from not having much, right? And I always wanted to be a good provider. So I was speaking to someone the other day, and even when I was working in the restaurant, 18 years old, I was always working for my family. I was trying to build a life for my family. It was always been like that. Someone said it can't be because you didn't have one. I literally remember in the kitchen, it's like I got to get myself ahead for the family that I'm going to create one day. Where do you think that drive comes from? Is it environment? Obviously, environmental factors. Is it not having things? Is it having things? Is it seeing? Like Somerset was probably the most eye-opening place of the way people lived and like I didn't go to many houses, but when I did, they were pretty fucking big. You know what I mean? Like Phil Chen's house was pretty massive, right? For me, right? We lived in a townhouse,
absolutely, for all of us.
And seeing the cars come to school, seeing I'm not going to say opulence, but look, they weren't doing badly. They were all doing very, very well. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Do you think a lot of the drive comes from seeing that and wanting that, yearning for that yourself? Do you think it comes from just the path?
To be honest, it comes from mum and dad were from the land, so they came from acres and acres and acres and acres and acres and hectares and hectares and hectares of place. You know, like they worked hard. Had a wheat farm, sorghum, cattle, sheep. Out the middle of, past Dalby near Condamine, St George for Queensland that way, and they worked, especially Dad in the early years. He worked sometimes 3 or 4 days, in a row, trying to get the wheat crop, and that's hard work, that sort of thing.
Yeah. And it's relentless too. It's 7 days a week. Like there's no, the cows come up every day. You know what I mean? Like right. Our parents and grandparents.
Hard work, good values, teaching you. And I saw what they did to put me through school, how hard they tried. Mum was taking up a third job at some stage there. And we were all sitting, I remember sitting when I was living next to Phil Chen over there in Sorrento, and I remember sitting in the lounge room, my brother, mum and dad, and we decided to take on the third job that mum was taking on and dad was taking on his second, and we were even taking on a job at this point. We were putting together those little trinket runner things that go in remember those little vertical blinds that you turn? They were the little gears up the top that when you turn the thing, when you pull the thing, they turn them. So we were putting those together, millions of them. Just to sort of earn a little bit of extra cash, so mum and dad could put us through Somerset still. Like it was, take my hat off to them, mate. I know what you're saying.
We're not talking about $5,000 a year. We're talking, I don't know, $20,000 a year. This is 25 years ago.
It's a hell of a lot more now. I think it's double that.
Is it? Yeah. Well, inflation, right? But but that's a lot of money, man. Honestly, I think
that's a term, right?
Wage was just for school.
I think it was for a term. It was, it was like $12,000. Like it was a lot of money for our term. Like far out.
Yeah, don't know. I didn't know.
I can't put my phone on. I can't put my phone on. It's on silent because the silent button's gone on it. So I'm sitting on my phone. Hopefully, it doesn't come through recording.
That's good. All good. So I think, and being a parent myself now, there's nothing that you wouldn't do for your kids. There's nothing, right? So so whatever they need, you give up everything, We didn't have food sometimes. Before Somerset, we went through a stage where if we got soy sauce and on our rice, that was a fucking amazing day. Like we literally didn't have food, So obviously, let's go what's that, sorry?
Sorry, I was going to say you've got your drive from the fact that you saw how you were growing up and how you didn't have everything, but you then go, well, I want to make sure that I have looked after my family. Not that saying yours hadn't, but you wanted to get yourself to a position where it was easier on you. You know what I mean?
That's right. Money's. They say money's not everything, but when you don't have it, it's more than what you think, right? Yeah, so it definitely doesn't. They say money doesn't make you happy. I challenge that. For me, money does create opportunities. It gives you options that you never have had before. It allows you to generate. But it is a way to a mean. But for me personally, obviously in sales and in business, it's purely a byproduct of adding value. Similar to yourself, the reason why you get paid, to sing in front of people is because you add value, you add emotion, you add the environment, and without that in that environment, it's a very, very different event, right?
100%.
Let's fast forward a little bit and let's go through some of the amazing moments you've had, some of the highlights. Obviously singing in front of George Bush. That's a pretty good start for a new group, right? That's you couldn't have asked for a better start. You know, if you're building a business or a brand and you get to speak in front of sing in front of a president. And
during the 10 Tenors days, we'd sung with people and you know, like Christina Aguilera, and we'd met a few people over the years, and so you kind of get the novelty sort of wears off to a point where, you know, when you start meeting all these people and you start rubbing shoulders with a few people, it's all just becomes a thing. But it's still a kick me moment. It's still like, you know, where I came from, how did I get here? Like, you know, singing. We've sung for Bill Clinton twice now. Mr. 42, lovely guy, great speaker. Just not a super energetic, but very engaging speaker. And you just sit there with your eyes on. You don't even blink. He's that good. But I remember being on stage with the boys in Minnesota for a group that we do a lot of charity work for. It's our main charity, which is called the Starkey Hearing Foundation. They fit in-ears basically for people all around the world that can't afford them for free. They donate them. Nice. People in Africa and places like that. So we do that every time they ask us to sing. We'll go and do it. We'll sing for them. So we've sung for them twice, and Bill was in the audience twice. And I remember looking down and seeing him there, going, you know, I'd like to look back now to all those people that didn't believe in the fact that I could be at this point, or and just go, now look at me now, hey, you know, that sort of thing. Like, it's not a arrogant thing. It's more just I'm proud of myself getting myself there, you know.
That's a pretty amazing thing, because a lot of times we brush over those moments, and, you know, for me personally, when I've hit milestones in business or success or financially, I'm so, well, you know, the last 20 years, I've been so eager to hit the next milestone that I literally didn't even celebrate it. It's like, cool, that was meant to happen anyway, move on, let's go. So obviously maturity, I definitely wasn't mature at school. In fact, when I first started in sales, I wasn't even mature enough to build a business, and I was still, Gold Coast is very, very distracting with bright lights and pretty things, and very, very challenging to move into that space if you don't have the pre-maturity to start with, and that definitely wasn't me. Right. I left and, you know, set my apprenticeship up, and then ran a restaurant, and then we sold that, and then got back into sales. What would be the biggest advice for someone that has that drive but forgets to celebrate?
Yeah, I did that. I had the drive, and I said I was working fitness first. I had the drive, and I just was working 7 days a week. I loved it. 7 days a week, 16, 17-hour days, just there all day, all night. And I was just pumping sales. I was driven. And I remember there was a moment where I had a nervous breakdown. Mm-hmm. And I actually developed depression, anxiety at that point. And it was because I was overworking myself. Not the hours. I mean, the hours were long, but you can always work hard, and you can always do the long hours. But there needs to be a balance of life in there as well. You need to celebrate your success. You need to have your family time. You need to do those things. You need to have your mates, your friends, time with your mates. And so, yeah, I'm a big believer after that about balance. And yeah, celebrating this, and you know, your successes, like you said. That's very important, you know, because what's it all mean really at the end of the day? You know, you have the experiences. You know, you just keep having these experiences, and you got no one to talk to them about, or you know, that's not going to do anything. At the end of the day, you're just going to get to a point where you're like, oh, okay, I've done that. Now what?
Yeah. And the perpetual drive to achieve something can lead to burnout. I think, you know, that balance that's probably the most contradicting ideology that I've come across in my life, and for a very, very long time, the last 10 years, especially as I've done more research personally and professionally into my own sort of whys and means to an ends, and working at, how do you drive at 100%, but then enjoy the journey? There's so many contradictions. How can you be relaxed and enjoy your family and then be, obviously, yeah, that's right. So, wherever I be there, as a tattoo on my wrist, went through that podcast a year ago now. That's taken 10 years to become a principle of mine, where if you're at work, be at work. If you're at home, be at home. And now I think a lot of people are going to find that very, very challenging. As they're working from home, there's that door to their office or their bedroom, wherever they're working from, there's no separation. And now when you bring work literally home to your home, there needs to be a good, let's say a clean room where you can just step inside, it washes you down, and then you can, anti-contamination room, and then you can walk into your home, which I find
separate that is it's very hard for a lot of people, and their personality traits too. Certain personality traits, as you know, being in sales, deal with things differently. It doesn't matter what there could be four. It depends on what sort of personality things you believe in. But I always believed there were 4 types of different personalities with a front and then a backup, and things like that intertwine and make somebody. Where I'm more of an emotional guy, where I like to make people happy. Yeah. And I like to tell them a story and tell them all the details, and and if I've had a bad day, I'd go home and I'd have a bad day at home. I'd be taking it home with me. And where a lot of the guys who are direct, they're like, get it done. This is what we need. They do the business. If they fall out with somebody, that's fine. They leave it at work. They go home. They're at home. Some of the time they bring their work home. But yeah, it's about balance and separating that somehow. It's hard, easier said than done.
Yeah, I think sometimes that's a skill. Same thing in anything in business. If you want to be great, it's a skill, and it takes time. Same as resilience is something that you need to learn. It's not something that you can just get, And the only way you learn resilience is by going through some serious shit. Outside of that, that's, you will not learn resilience by sitting on the couch in your beautiful 24 degrees heating when it's cool outside and 22 when it's warm outside. Like you're not going to develop those skills outside of that. What do you think some fundamental skills or attributes you've had to learn? Do you think that school and potentially, I don't know how to explain that, because I never saw myself as less than someone, but I do remember at school, my quote was, I don't need that to become a professional cyclist. So it's like, oh, you don't have a very big chest, because I was real skinny compared to the rugby guys and the rowers with Toby and Lawrence and those boys. And obviously you played rugby as well. I don't need that to be a professional cyclist. You're not very good at maths. I don't need that, so but that's purely, if I look back, that's purely a defense mechanism, because I know I was shit at a lot of things. School definitely, there were so many things that I wasn't good at, where, maths, Mr. Alcorn, I remember there was a double period at Wednesday, but that was my longest ride of the week. That was about 130 Ks before school. And I was always late. Yeah. And I just literally come off the bike, got home, had some breakfast, raced here. I was always 15 minutes late. My legs are still tingling from riding over Tommywin or down to Murwillumbah or something stupid like that. 130 Ks before school is pretty ridiculous.
Oh, 100%. I wouldn't do that now.
Oh, I can't do that now. I've got all the gear, but I've got no idea. That's for sure. I'm now the fat guy with the Colnago and carbon fiber wheels at $3,000. But I ride like nothing. Anyway, 30 Ks hurts me now, where 30 Ks used to be the warm up. So when I came into that, and all I could think about was where I was going. I think one of the biggest missing points of kids at school these days is passion. I don't think they're exposed to enough things and I don't think they're pushed into enough things at school through their parents.
Yeah, that's a hard debate. That.
Yeah,
and a lot of the time, lot of things now, they're all about like not creating competition.
Yeah.
As in they're scared of somebody who finishes last, or it's a tough one. It really is. I believe competition's healthy.
Definitely.
It creates drive. It creates excitement. Personal drive, like that personal thing where you get where you may not be good at running, you may come last. That's it. You may be great at swimming though. You might be coming first in swimming, but it makes you want to do that thing. It makes you want to. Yeah, I really believe that if we try and shelter our kids from,
definitely.
I'm not saying our kids, I don't have kids, but like kids in general, from competition and healthy rivalry.
Yeah,
like
definitely.
this. I think that world will change, and it'll become a bit of a. I don't know. I don't agree with it personally, but I understand some people's points with that as well. But I mean, we had competition at school. It was healthy. It didn't make me, any less of a man, or.
No, I think, I remember one cross country one time, and Jacko was a pretty good runner, and I remember coming up, and I was probably, I don't know, mid to bottom third of the pack. Yeah. I don't know, not very good. I was a cyclist. I wasn't a runner.
Yeah.
Nor a swimmer, nor cross country, nor soccer, baseball, cricket. I think I've tried nearly every school sport possible. I remember playing hockey, and I was a goalie, and I let a couple of goals in. I went off the field in state in the Browning Cup, fucking crying, man. I was gutted. Yeah. Like let 3 goals in, bam, 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 couldn't stop it. And
it's horrible being a goalie, man. You pick the worst thing, dude.
I remember
it's all on you. It's all on you when some goals go in it.
And then I think Mrs. Crowley pulled me off, and I was in my helmet crying. And it wasn't. I mean, that was pretty bad. It wasn't necessarily for me. It was the whole team and all the boys that Jacko and Shorty was there. Yourself was there. Hamo, I think Jordan.
CJ.
Yeah, I think Jordan Ramsey was the goalie that came in after me. But it was horrible. I remember walking off in third person, and I didn't want to take my helmet off because I had tears right now. I was like, fuck, I can't believe I was so shit. But those, because we were pretty good. Like, we were a pretty good team. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Except the goalie was fucking shit house, That's the only thing that let us down. It was just the goalie that was having I don't know, he must have had his glasses off or something. But it was such a defining moment in I'm not going to say failure, but it was such a defining moment that I remember. And if you don't have those moments, how do you create the person that you're going to be? That's my challenge. Jacko, I remember racing Jacko, and for some reason we ended up together, and I sprinted home. Like, I don't remember seeing it. I was just like chariots of fire running, and down just everything went blank. And you need to have that competition in your life, because life, essentially, if you're going for, let's say, a partner or a wife or girlfriend, there's competition out there. If you're going for a job, there's heaps of competition. If you're going for a property, renting or buying a property, there's losses. There's more losses in the world than there are wins.
100%.
And if you're not prepared for those losses, and if you're not developing the skills and the strength to actually be able to handle it, I think you're going to fall into some deep, dark days, and then you come into depression and anxiety, and
all part of it.
So prevalent, but it's not necessary. I did a podcast a while ago, and the title was, we're not dealing with a mental health problem, we're dealing with a mental strength problem. Fuck, I copped some backlash for that one, but that was, essentially what the Victorian Premier took out of context in the media. But
I get what you, but I know what you mean by that too.
You mean it's not necessarily just the health part of it, but it's a strength behind that, right? Yep. And I think that there's a lot of, to create success and mass success, which is, I'm so proud of, to watch your growth and to come from school. And I swear to God, there must have been some people in our school that didn't say anything, but I definitely know they would have said something and would have said, Jules and Scotty, fuck, good luck. Like, good luck. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's not, they weren't being negative or trying to put you down. but just from what they saw and the characteristics of that person at that time was you're gonna have to do something pretty special to pull something out of your ass in that one, or it's just not gonna happen. Cycling was what that was the only thing I was thinking of. It didn't kind of work out that way, and I'm grateful because I probably would have met my wife and my family that I have right now. But there's definitely a lot of strength that can be created and developed out of
100%.
such sort of I never felt lonely, but it definitely didn't feel like I was gonna do something. But I was convinced in my heart, my soul, my mind, my body, I was convinced that I was going to be a success in cycling. And that same drive is copycatted and transferred into
something else,
whatever else you do.
That's right.
So cycling and racing was definitely one of the big things. Another big thing for me, and I'll ask you what yours was. Another massive thing that I know has had a huge impact on my life was I wanted to play saxophone. My mum said, you need to get to 7th grade in clarinet and then I'll buy you a saxophone. So I did. Took me 4 years.
Right.
That was, and when I got that saxophone we set a goal, we achieved that goal, and I got the reward.
Nothing wrong with that. Goal setting.
That's how, and that
almost
has,
it's almost like a personal competition. It becomes a personal competition. It's you're competing against yourself, but it's healthy,
Yeah. And let's
setting goals.
Even though 25 years ago, even though I wasn't really into girls, the clarinet was not the sexiest instrument on the planet.
Yeah.
Like no girls in an Eisteddfod are going to come up to a clarinet player.
No.
Like it's
not
or
a flautist, I remember playing like organ. Obviously, it's similar to the piano, but it was different. But I wish when mum and dad said learn the organ, like do this. I wish I'd took them up on it, because now it's cool to play piano and just pick up a piano and play in a party or guitar. Like I can play a little bit of guitar, but like fluently just pick up a guitar and rip a guitar. Like, I mean, you're a bit of a hero. Where if you pull out a clarinet, I mean, you're just like, what's this guy? Like it sounds like a bloody emu. Like, what's going on here? You know what I mean?
I don't think you'd be getting many numbers at a party if you. Oh, I got a song to play, everyone. Oh, fantastic! You pull out your clarinet and start blowing. Right. Yeah, no one's going back to your place. That's for sure. No one. That is definitely not true. But so let's go through some memories. Best memory that you've had in your singing career.
Okay, best memory I would say would be it happened last year, actually. Out of 20 years, we had this opportunity to travel to Sicily, and there's a place called Taormina. Taormina is this just a quaint little town, very tight streets, but they've got this incredible Greek theatre. They call it Teatro di Greco. So it's this beautiful Greek theatre that's like stuck in the city, old sort of rocky ruins. If you want, I'll send you a photo. You can put it up you can have a look, or you can get it's on my social medias. But yeah, there's this beautiful old amphitheatre that's been there since basically year 2.
Wow.
So 2,000 odd years old, like unbelievable. And we got this call saying, would you like to come and sing for this travel company that is going to book out this theatre, and it's open to the public. You walk, like people were in there when we were sound checking, doing a sound check, and they were in there looking at it's a ruin, obviously. It's a tourist attraction. So they're looking in there, and we're doing sound check, and it turns out that everybody that was in there looking at the ruin just ended up just sitting down in the old rocky seats on the way up, and they had 15-20 minutes of a free show, really, and they didn't even bother looking at the thing. I was just sitting there watching the show.
Nice.
So
amphitheater, is that what it was?
Big amphitheater, open air amphitheater. So I remember we did this sound check, and I'm looking around going, wow, and there's the Ionian Sea in the background, Manhattan was smoking in the background, and I've just gone, wow. And then I got home, we got back to the hotel, got changed quickly, and we had the show that night, and they said, please don't walk behind the theatre, because it's like this cobblestoney thing behind the theatre, until you need to go on stage, because we don't want to, we want to preserve as much as we can, So we stayed side stage until it's time. So we walked behind the stage, all these cobblestones, riding behind the stage, full brick sort of like columns. These columns are amazing. And I'm sitting there just before I go on, and I always take a bit of time to sort of meditate, almost in a sort of way. I sort of close my eyes and just sort of focus on what I'm about to do. Create the energy. If I haven't got the energy, I create it. It's always there. You can always imagine what adrenaline will do. It's always going to bring you there. So I'm there creating or focusing on whatever I'm doing, and I'm just sitting here looking at the wall I'm standing next to, just tapping it. I was tapping the microphone. It's going, this has been standing here since year 2.
That's crazy.
I'm there going, I'm about to sing at a venue where modern day hero of mine have sung, like Andrea Bocelli was the week before, and Josh Groban and people like that. But there were Romans and Greeks doing their thing in there, like early on. It just blows my mind. So then going on stage that night, there was a full moon. It set right over us, and the lights, and you could see the mountain. It was a bit all stormy in the background, and that was a pinch me moment, man. I was like, I will never in my career do something like that again. It was, and the audience was phenomenal. It was something else. It was really something. Getting to travel to Italy, to a country, to get paid to do that. You're just there, you're going, what? It's just, I classify myself as a really humble sort of person. I got mum and dad who brought me up like that, and I still, doesn't matter what it is, every single time I go on the road, I get on a plane to travel somewhere, I'm always so very excited. I'm so very thankful. Doesn't matter if I've been away for all this time and I haven't had time at home, and I use that time at home so wisely, and I do as much as I can and be with the people I want to be with. But when it's on the road, when I get to go out that door with my suitcase, I'm on the road to do what I love to do. Man, there's no better feeling. I love it.
Yeah.
Still, I've been traveling on the road now for probably 15 years, 16 years or something. And I still just, it's a drug for me. And as you know, I've never taken any form of drug in my life. So, that is my drugs. I don't need. I've had Ritalin and Panadol, but nothing like a party drug of such, But that's my party drug. That's my feeling where I get on stage. I'm happy as a pig in mud.
And especially when you travel a lot, in 2016, I think I caught about 70 flights, all at 6 o'clock in the morning, stayed at, I've traveled more domestically than I ever thought I would have done in my life. Not so much overseas. My business didn't really take me that many places overseas. A few places, Taiwan, America, and New Zealand a few times. But it's very, very easy to become very ungrateful and very spoilt when you travel so much. Very easy. I'd rock up to another 5-star hotel, and the 2 single beds are separated, but I asked for a king, and you're like, ugh, the bathrooms are like granite top benches, and there's only one basin in there, and the things look from 1995 circa. And you're thinking, you catch another flight, you're like, oh, just get on this flight, and you start to,
and you didn't get the upgrade
you just expect the exit row, and you know what I mean, and then the stewards on the plane often give you free scotch or something because you're really nice to them, or another packet of peanuts, and you just get expected, that's just what happens all the time, But how do you stay so grounded? You're obviously a very, very humble person. How do you stay so grounded? Because even for myself, I found myself being very hotel snob, where it's like, this is just a 4-star is like a fucking tent compared to some of the places. And you rock up and you're staying at Coolum. I remember. I'm like, oh, where is this place? This is like laminated bench tops and
right.
And then you stay at the Crown. You're like, this is my kind of shit right here. You know what I
I
mean?
mean, everyone's gonna like rocking up to a Ritz-Carlton, aren't they? And go, oh yeah, this is the shit. This is the shit. You've got the fluffy slippers at the door. You've got the robe.
Nice robes.
It's all schmick. King-size bed, comfy cushion top. Yeah, it's nothing better than a 5-star hotel.
I got a pillow menu from the Sofitel.
Pillow menu, a 5 a la carte, like in-room dining, 24-hour dining. Sure, it's all rad. That is rad. But I think the reason what keeps me grounded is that I enjoy the simple things. Like I would much prefer. I don't know if you're the same, but I would personally much prefer to go on a holiday with my mates, camping on a beach in Fraser or out the back of nowhere, where I can have my fire pit, sit around the fire pit, drinking with telling stories, and then go to bed in a tent under the stars. I prefer that much more than a hotel. I don't even know how many hotel rooms I've been in, but I've spent a lot of time in them. I would much prefer transferring that to a degree where I can just have those moments in a tent and camping. I love that. I mean, that's what's kept me probably, I don't know. I guess human decency too. Like there's a lot of people you see when you're on the road, as you know too, you would have seen it, where you're on a flight and somebody is just, they just think they deserve the world, and you just go, mate, like, come on. And they're treating these people like that work, they're working their asses off just like you and I.
Yeah.
And they're treating them like garbage. And it's a human decency thing. I guess that's where it comes down to. If you're not a decent human, or you struggle with commonality in finding commonality with people, that's a big thing. And that's a big thing with sales too. Commonalities for me is my biggest life lesson. If you can't find some sort of rapport and commonality with somebody, then you're not going to do well. You're not going to get far. It's huge. Like rapport. Every time I get onto a flight, or I try and smile at that person and I shake the hand. Even it's amazing what you'll get then for that whole flight. Yeah, not free shit. I mean, you could get free shit, but that's not the thing. It's more. You will enjoy your flight better. They enjoy theirs flight better because they've got a guy now who's a lovely guy. I'm not going to ask him. Can you? This is awful here. This is that. And just spend that whole time whinging. I don't know. I've never been that sort of person. I don't know. Yeah,
definitely.
I believe it's an upbringing thing too. Like it's your parents bring you up like that. My mum and dad have been very good in bringing us up, and I don't know, being country folk, very very simple people. I don't know. I just love the simple stuff.
Yeah, there was one that I remember catching a flight back from Melbourne, I think, and this guy got, the people that wear sunglasses inside, 9 times out of 10, complete fuckwits, right? It's just or drunk or hungover. I get the hungover because they're really passive and they're nothing, right? But anyone that wears sunglasses inside and a hat on the fucking is normally quite a knob. It's a very
American thing.
Is it? Yeah. This guy was decked head to toe in Petronas AMG, and a Mercedes hand luggage. Oh, and I saw him. And I was like, oh, wow, just wow. You're not part of you're not the director of the fucking team. You know what I mean? No. And whether that was my own judgment, and I was unfortunately, when you deal with, I've spoken to 100,000 people face to face in regard to my sales processes. You get to read people pretty quickly. And I was like, this guy looks like a knob. And he was complete. Yeah. Just wanted to sit here and give me this and I want that. And you're like, bro, they're just doing their job, man. You don't need to be like that in your life. You're the one that looks funny, not everyone else. So human decency is definitely something right now. I don't really want to touch on it, but there's so much division and everything becomes divisive. We've spoken to this before. There's people with different opinions. I actually had I did a podcast a while with Ryan Magic, and we had a very, very different opinion on business coaches. I come from the fact that, you need to have experience to set up a business, and he had no experience and set up a $10 million business from no experience and just backed himself. And I'm like, yeah, but if you're going to charge, you need to be charging and deliver some value. Not that I'm saying he didn't deliver value. You couldn't create a $10 million business without creating value, but very, very different. And at the end of it, we're like, you know what? I appreciate you. I respect that view. I understand your view. It doesn't mean I agree with it. I still have my own ideologies myself.
Yeah.
But we came to a very, very mutual agreement and, professional respect. And that, that's where I think a lot of people these days are very, very divisive in their decisions. And it's like black and white. And the world it's not like that. Like,
no.
There's plenty of people on my Facebook that don't agree with some of the things that I say. And like, it's pretty obvious, you know what I mean? Yeah. And it doesn't mean that you can't be friends, but sometimes there's definitely a clash. And it's like, look, I don't even know if we can be friends anymore. I said, that's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
I mean, it's amazing at what certain things. Yeah, it's amazing how those things sort of create. I mean, it's like I guess a lot of people aren't business minded too. So in business, there's a lot. If you're going to treat your business like that, where little things that annoy you, or you're not agreeing with somebody on, or if you're going to just go, not dealing with that person anymore, you're going to have the worst business.
Yeah.
You're not going to have a successful business. You need to learn how to build a bridge.
Yeah.
And move on with things professionally.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Let's wrap it up. I think it's been. I had a lot of fun. That was cool. That's been. It's like a 20-year reunion. You know what I mean? Maybe I should do a podcast from school. But if you were going to go back and meet Scott Fields in grade 10, 11, 12, and the reason why I asked this question is because if I go back to me at school, even though it wasn't the path that I was, what I thought was destined to achieve, if I look at the person and look what's happened, and very extremely blessed and extremely grateful for everything that I have and have been able to achieve and experience. If I go back to the guy in year 10, 11, and 12, I remember shaving my face, the little bum fluff in year 10 when I came to Somerset, because I thought everyone was going to be like men, right? And I was this little skinny runt. I left school at 61 kilos, and now it's a bit different. But there was so much pressure coming into such a nice school. I was like, I better shave my face. Like this, you know what I mean? There was nothing there. You know what I mean? Like, what would you? So if I go back to year 11 and 12, and I explain what happened to my life, in some respect, I don't think I would have achieved it. And the reason why I say that is because if I thought that was what was going to happen, you'd probably take the foot off the gas, because you know what I mean? So what would you say to yourself in 11 and 12, taking 18 spares a week?
That is a mad question. It's a tough one. It's one of those things. I'm a big believer of like learning as you grow to learn to grow to learn. Sure, there's certain things that I'd like to say that I guess not regret doing, and because I think those things that they do build you to be the person, to be the businessman, or to be the professional person that you are. But some things I would probably do differently, and I'd probably advise myself, look, do this, or get to this point first. Don't get overexcited about this. Or it was, for me, it was more of just a maturity thing. I think, unfortunately, you can't really tell someone to mature. They just have to over time. Mm-hmm. I would advise my year 10 self, smarten up and get to the maturity of everybody else right now, because you're going to waste time. I feel like I've wasted a good chunk of my early 20s, like late teens, early 20s, because I was working it all out, which is fine. But I feel like I want now on the back end, I want to have those extra years now to have, I just wish I was like some of the other guys at school, matured enough to a point where they could go to uni and study for hours and spend their time. And I just wish I had that mental capacity then, because I'd be fast. Yeah, I don't know. I would be sitting here at the age of 38 going, oh, wish I was further along in my career, so to speak. I don't know. It's a good question, man. So it's one I'd probably have to mull that over for a while, because you could easily say change this or change that, but really you shouldn't have to. You shouldn't really need to worry about that, because that's your life. You build those blocks, and they make you who you are. And there's definitely stuff ups, but there's definitely admiration for yourself too.
Definitely, it's definitely a tough one, because if I even for myself, put myself in that same situation, I'd say, because I didn't go down the cycling path. So what I would have said to myself is, fucking push the cycling. But then if I pushed the cycling, I probably wouldn't have done the stuff that I've done in business, right?
Right.
So, and then you're right. It is a tough one. Probably one thing that I'd probably say to myself would be, it's all good. Things are going to work out just fine, but just push a little bit. I don't know. Yeah, you're right. It's a tough one.
That's the thing. You gotta.
Would I have pushed it a little bit more? I don't think I could have pushed any harder. From doing a 4-year apprenticeship in 13 months and then taking over I don't think I could have. The only way I could have pushed any harder is I gave myself a heart attack. I think I don't think I've done that. But it takes it's a journey, right? Obviously, that is a journey rather than a destination. But you need, I think, if you're going to go back and tell yourself, it's just to kind of relax with who you are. It's all good to be here.
Yep.
It's all good. It's all good not to be great at school. It's okay.
Absolutely, mate. Yeah, absolutely.
That's probably what I'd say.
Yeah,
it's all good. Because it takes 21.
I'll leave you with a funny story, because I'm going to have to shoot off here in a minute. But I'll leave you with a funny story. People see see my social media and stuff, and they see what I get up to, and people who I've shared the stage with, Lionel Richie. I'm doing some name dropping here now. Lionel Richie, Steven Tyler, Seal, all these sorts of people we've done stuff with. But then there's moments where and I'll tell you this funny story. There's moments where you're on the road, you're doing this thing, and you're doing your normal thing. You're singing. You wake up in the morning. You travel into the next place. Anyway, one night we got me and Shorty and the boys. We got pretty hammered after a show, and we had to travel from Canada to Los Angeles, then back to Brisbane. So then we were in Vancouver, and it was after Christmas time. So we stayed in Florida for Christmas, then went up north and to Vancouver, and we had all this stuff, and we got pretty hammered one night. And for a Secret Santa present, a bit of a laugh, they gave me a set of fluffy handcuffs, like pink fluffy handcuffs. It was $5 from a cheap shop, Anyway, so me and Shorty came home late one night and one morning, and we had to get on the bus, and our shit was everywhere. Like, I was like, oh no. And I'm like, dude, I'm ringing my phone, go, I don't know if I'll make the bus. I'm hungover. I'm still drunk. I'm throwing all my stuff in the bag. I didn't know what was going in where, and my phone was getting called from the manager to a manager going, hurry up. Like, righto. Anyway, got to the airport. Long story short, go through security, and my bag's beat. And I go, what's going on here? And I'm like, oh, and I'm in a tracksuit. I look like hammered shit. Like, I look like death, mate. Anyway, the lady pulls me aside. Whose bag is this? It's mine. And she comes over and she goes, are you a police officer, sir, or a security guard? I'm like, and I stupidly said, oh, what, is there a gun in my bag? Anyway, she goes, sir, I advise you. I said, sorry, I didn't mean to say that. I've had a big night. She goes, I know, I can see that.
I can smell that.
Thank you. No, I said, no. She goes, no, these. She pulls out the fluffy handcuffs. I must have thrown them in my carry-on. And she holds them up in front of everybody. Man, this is peak hour. Man, everyone just went, yeah! People I didn't know, eh? Oh, jeez. Yeah, so you have those moments in your good moments, and then you've got your bad too. And I was embarrassed. I said, look, you can hold on to those. I don't
you can have that.
Yeah. Anyway, so that was that.
Good way to end.
You've got some good moments, you've got some bad, but yeah, in all though, mate, you look back and yeah, I'm quite proud of what I've done. I know you are too. And I'm so stoked to be able to share a 40 minutes or half an hour, whatever we've shared together. And
yeah, it's been amazing.
Yeah, let's catch up for a beer.
Definitely. When we can fly, when your Premier lets us into the bloody state, we'll go back.
Right.
One thing that I ask every guest: 3 top tips for success. What are your 3 top tips?
Listen. As in like listen to people, listen to what others have experienced. Listen. Don't be too arrogant. So always listen. We talked about being grounded, having a good attitude. I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
For me, is attitude. I don't believe. I mean, you can be an arsehole and get somewhere, but you're not going to be liked. You're not going to be very successful. I believe attitude's a big thing. And then drive. You have to have drive. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot to that though. There's a lot to drive. There's a lot to how much drive, what that entails.
Where and when.
I'm not the sort of person that's going to be balls to the wall, 100%. Wake up in the morning, everything to do with music. No, I'm not that sort of person. I would probably die from stress. But you still need to have an element of drive to become successful. I don't believe there's probably only a really small number of people that you could think of that things have just landed in their lap. Sure, it happens.
Yeah.
But what you do with that when you have it in your lap, if you're just going to have it in your lap, oh, cool. I've been offered to do this. I can't do it. It's what you do with that. So that drive, sure, you might get stuff landed on your lap, but there's other people that have to work for it. And that's good too.
Yeah.
But yeah, just attitude, drive, and
listen.
What did I say the first one?
Listen.
That's right. Yeah. So listening to what people have got to say and learn from their successes and wisdom. And
yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Beautiful, man. Mate, it's been an absolute pleasure. 20 years on from 2 of the, well, let's say underperforming, quote unquote, people at school, but
100%.
Mate, it's been absolute testament to your resolve, your work ethic, drive, and mate, it's been an absolute pleasure. But very, very proud of the journey, and it's been pretty amazing to watch on the other side. I guess for the most part, most people don't really see who we're admired by, if that makes sense. But when you and Shorty were singing it, I was like, fuck, that's amazing. Like, well done.
Yeah.
Like, really well done. You should be very, very
and the same goes from me to you on that too.
Thanks,
it's social media is really the only thing that keeps us knowing what's going on with each other, which is there's pluses against social media and obviously pros and cons. But in this respect, I think it's a plus because you get to keep up with what you guys are doing and what other people are doing, and I've been totally excited about seeing how you've come on since then, and I always like following your videos, always watch them because I'm interested in what you do too. Like that was part of my life, sales and self-development, things like that, growth.
Yeah.
So yeah, man. Again, same thing. I'm very proud of you as you are proud of me, and that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, nice, man. Easy. Well, thanks again for your time, and I hope everyone got a lot out of it. I know I definitely got a lot out of it, and mate, it's been absolutely a pleasure to catch up. So thanks, man.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate it.
Beautiful.
Ciao.